Hey everyone, I'm X O'Connor, sitting here with Logan Crockett and Becky Chappell. She's the Director of Music Business Studies at Anderson University in Anderson, Indiana. How are you doing this morning?
Great.
Yeah?
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on the Made It in Music podcast. We're excited to have you.
I'm so
Always a
honored
good
to be
time.
here.
Yeah, so you're in town with some students.
Yes.
Just, what are you guys doing?
Well, I brought some students from the Orangehaus record label,
Okay.
which is a part of Anderson University, and we're meeting with some producers and managers and record label execs throughout the day just
Cool.
to see what's going on down here and see if we can get some ideas for our class.
So, can you tell us a little bit about the process your students go through? Like, what are they, like, what's the course of work they're looking to push into?
Okay, well, all of these are music business majors, of
Okay.
course,
Yeah, yeah.
upperclassmen who are here. And one of the advantages of the program at Anderson University, and I know Logan can speak to this because he is an alum of Anderson University, is that we really try to do a hands-on experience with music business with students right from the get-go.
Yeah.
In fact, you know, our motto is if you haven't started your career in the music business by the time you get to college, you need to start it right then. I don't want you to come and sit in a chair at the end of your college career and say, okay, now what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
Because it's too late.
Yeah.
And in fact, we've expanded that and to say that even starting your career in music business as a freshman is too late. You need to start it in high school. So we started a summer camp for high school kids to learn music business called Orangehaus Music Business Camp, where they can come and learn how to make money in the music business.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of that, that's actually a great segue into. We have a couple like stock questions we like to fire off at people.
Okay.
So for you, when was it that you, or how did you make your first dollar in music?
Oh my goodness, my very first dollar.
The
in
very
music?
first dollar.
Yep,
So this
very
can go,
first
like-
dollar, yeah.
This can go way
Okay.
back if it
I mean,
needs
this
to.
if someone hired you to play at a wedding when you were 7, that would even count.
Okay. Well, I'm a clarinetist.
Okay.
So I actually earned my first dollar playing in a Western swing band when I was 12
Okay.
in Texas.
So what were you doing? So was this just like a band that you
It was
just
for a private party.
Okay.
I was hired to play.
Hired gun at
I was
12.
hired at 12 to play in a Western swing band at
Okay.
a private party in Texas.
So coming out of the Western swing band, what enabled you to kind of go full time into music? Like give us a little idea of like your career path.
Well, my parents were country western musicians,
Yep.
and I knew I didn't want to play in bars and go on the road, but I loved music. And so my band director said, well, you know, you could actually go to college and teach. And so I actually went to school and got a music ed degree, but decided I didn't want to teach in public schools. And so I went on to get my master's and my doctorate and decided to teach in college, and then found a love for music business. And I had kind of a natural talent at being creative and entrepreneurial, which I think most musicians are.
Yeah,
creative and
you almost have to
entrepreneurial.
be
Yeah.
now.
And so I just started teaching that to my students, and I've been doing it ever since, and I
Very
love
cool.
it.
That's awesome. So what brought you into Anderson?
I actually went to Anderson College. It was Anderson College at the
Okay.
time, but I did go to Anderson College, and I loved the school. It's a faith-based school. There were wonderful teachers, wonderful mentors, and then I left there and went to grad school. And then they called me when I graduated from grad school and said, "Hey, would you consider coming back here to teach?" And I said, "Absolutely." So I came back to teach.
That's awesome.
Very cool. Well, one of personally, like as a student who went through the program in Anderson, one of my favorite kind of philosophies that you like to talk about was the fact that every business is the music business. Could you go into that real quick and just
yes.
tell the good listeners kind of the general idea behind that?
And my students make fun of me because they all mock this. You know, I know every business is the music business, but I believe it because I woke up one day, and this was years ago, and we really had a different path in our program. Our program was more like other music business schools where you learn the music business and then you intern at a record label and then you hope you get hired from your internship. And we were kind of going down that path. And it's like, this is not working. And I woke up one Saturday morning and had some errands to run. So I go to Starbucks, of course, to get my coffee. And there's a download card for some songs there. And I'm thinking, Starbucks is really the music business here, And then I go to Shoe Carnival
Yeah.
because I'm going to buy a pair of boots. And because I have spent more than $50, I get this download card for 10 free songs from Shoe Carnival. Okay.
I'm shopping at the wrong place, apparently.
I'm thinking, oh my gosh, Shoe Carnival is the music business, you know?
Yeah.
So then I drive through McDonald's for lunch, you know, and what are they doing? They're giving away this kids bop CD or something, you know, and with every Happy Meal. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, do you know how many copies that they have sold in these Happy Meals? Because now McDonald's is the music business, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, I go home and I get my mail and I get my Nordstrom, you know, magazine. And I'm opening it up, and it says, oh, well, because you're some Nordstrom's Rewards member, you can get this meet and greet with Michael Bublé, you know, who's going to be doing it. And I'm thinking,
not pulling any punches either. They're busting out the big guns.
And I'm thinking, well, now Nordstrom. And then I go in, and if you go into Nordstrom, they sell CDs there.
Yeah.
And then everywhere you go, of course, music is being played. Somebody's paying for that.
All the
So
licensing.
it's pretty hard to find a business that's not impacted by music.
Man. So let's expand on that a little bit too, because before we got started, we did talk about how there's so many different avenues to make money in the music industry. It's not about just selling records and all that anymore. Like with dealing with students, how do you kind of like convey that to them? Like what thoughts do you give them to help expand their view of it? Because I'm imagining some kids will come in being like, oh, this is exactly what I have to do to make money in music.
Well, of course, we spend the first couple of years exploring some things. So every course that you take has an entrepreneurial, like right now I'm teaching Intro to Music Publishing, and their final project is they have to set up a publishing company.
Okay.
And define their catalog and what kind of songs and how they're going to make money from it and some create, you know, that sort of thing. But with the record label class, which has really been a great resource for preparing students for the music industry, because we're a small independent label. And by the way, the first artist that we signed was John McLaughlin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So we launched his career. And he's done very
extremely well.
Yeah.
We've seen some of his songs come through here, actually.
Yes. So, but at the beginning of when we started the label, we were doing it like every other label where we, you know, would sign an artist, we'd develop them, sink some money in them, try to promote it. And then after we did that for a while, it's like, you know, let's try something different. So a couple of years ago, I went to the students, and because we're a small label, we can change our business model every semester if we want to, or every year.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of the year, I said, hey, okay, so let's try something different. Anybody got any ideas? So one of the students said, you know, I would like to do a project to see if a music company can use their music to make a difference in the community and still turn a profit. And I said, I think that's a great idea. Let's do it. So I went out and procured 2 projects in the community. One was with St. Vincent Hospice Program, where I went to their foundation and got them to write me a check that paid for the recording. And then we also had the students to take TB shots and to go out and perform for actively dying hospice patients.
Oh, wow.
And the recording was included comforting hymns from several of our alumni, including John McLaughlin submitted Amazing Grace for that, which was wonderful. And then also one of the students who later on went to get a master's in film scoring in California wrote a 10-minute soundscape based on the pamphlet that's given to hospice patients called Gone From My Sight. So it was a beautiful album that we gave away, not a CD release party, but a live concert where we gave the CD to hospice workers and to the families of hospice patients.
Wow.
And then the interesting thing about that project, and we made a lot of money from that project, but the interesting thing about that project is that we thought that we were going to go out and make a difference in the community, and the people that it made the most difference in was my students.
That's incredible.
You know, they became more generous, more caring, more competent. It was an amazing project.
And that just probably shows them a different side of music in general and the impact that it can have
Yes.
with people all over.
And then the other project that we did, we went to the Madison County Juvenile Center and said, if you buy us instruments, write us a check, buy us instruments, what if instead of sentencing these kids to electronic monitoring or in-house detention, you brought them to Anderson University every Monday and the Orangehaus music business, the Orangehaus records class. They worked with these students to teach them songwriting and recording techniques and how to play instruments and sing in a gospel choir and play in a band. And we also have a dance program there and to learn some dances. And so they did that for 2 years. We did that with those kids. And it wasn't about trying to make professional musicians out of them.
Yeah.
It was about using music to be a positive force in their lives and to make a difference in their lives. And I know that at that age, I went to a conference where someone said this, and it's so true. You can think back when you were 16 years old, and you can come up with a playlist of at least 10 songs that seriously impacted your life.
Absolutely.
And changed your life. And when you hear those songs today, you still get those same feelings about those songs, right?
Absolutely.
Very much.
But you can't do that when you're 26, 36, 46, 56. It's not the same impact.
Yeah.
Because music impacts that culture that much. And so we felt very fortunate to be able to work with kids in that age and be a part of their lives.
Yeah.
We managed to form, and let me tell you, this was difficult because I'm not saying these kids were the most talented, okay?
Yeah.
And they have issues and they're distracted.
Yeah.
But my kids put together a band and they taught them free falling tom bass, because it has like 2 chords, and, So
just keeps doing the same thing. Yeah,
so they taught them free falling, and then we had a band, a dance troupe, and a gospel choir, and we took them to the state convention of all the juvenile judges at the convention and had them perform live.
Oh, wow.
To a standing ovation to say, you know what? Instead of punishing these kids, maybe there are some other things you can do to be a positive force in their life.
Yeah.
So those were 2 projects that made us more money than any of the projects we had done in the past 10 years.
Man, that's incredible. Just the reach is unreal.
Yeah.
Well, when you think that, that there aren't other options out there, there are always other options.
There are always other options.
Musicians.
And in fact, we could have, when we did the hospice thing, of course, there's a lot of money in hospital foundations, but also the funeral homes were on board. It's like, we want to be a part of this project, and retirement homes. And so it was a great project for us.
Man. So it's blowing my mind. I love it. So with students like that, I mean, I know you see a lot of students come through. Like, do you find that you see common traits in students as they're coming through that give them the drive to produce these kinds of projects with you, or to even just take what they've learned in your atmosphere and push it out into the real world and continue to find success? Like, are there common threads that go through each student?
Yes. Well, first of all, they have to be driven.
Yeah.
They have to have a serious passion for music and for doing this, because it's too hard.
Yeah.
You would not want to do it unless you had a passion for it, because there's just too many ropes you have to jump through to get to where you need to be.
Yeah.
But if I can turn the question around and say common traits for those students who are successful, I would say, number 1, that they're driven, but number 2, that they're great at networking and they're well balanced. Because most of the time, what really makes me sad is to see a student who's incredibly talented, but they're so dysfunctional in other ways. In other words, they just don't show up, or they just can't function, that they really can't realize their potential, and their talent. So it's more than just talent. In fact, I developed a course at Anderson University called Beyond Talent, Entrepreneurship for Musicians, which is just about that. It's like, really, how much talent does it take to be successful in the industry? There's so many other variables other than talent.
Yeah.
I went to a conference in New York several years ago with deans and heads of departments from Eastman, Juilliard, Curtis, Northwestern, Colburn Academy, all these, and here Anderson University, and the question that they were asking, the reason why they were there, it's like they're going, here's the problem. We are graduating the best, the brightest, the most talented kids in the world.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they can't get a job. And we don't know how to help them.
Yeah.
And, and I'm saying, well, I don't have that problem in my school,
Well, you create a social atmosphere as well. I feel like just from, hearing you talk about the projects you do and everything, there's a saying that floats around Nashville a lot that it's 90% not talent that drives you to be successful. I mean, it's way more about how you develop relationships, maintain relationships, and there's just this social atmosphere to a lot of it that I think some kids now with the internet and I have cousins that when they go home to hang out with friends, they got on Skype or they just chat or whatever. There's that missing connection of being in a room, two people, actually being able to sit down, share ideas, speak in a way that's not offensive to each other and stuff like that. And it sounds like you cultivate an atmosphere that promotes that and just develops that inside of people, which I know for myself, the ability to read rooms and know when to say things, when not to say things, when to just be invisible versus, when to speak up. It's been a huge part of just being in the music business.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes. That is true.
Very much. Well, quick little tangent here, because we've talked a lot about what you've done, as a professor and a lot of the program that you've been a part of putting on. But you've of course also had a lot of success as a musician yourself, and you've done quite a few things in the studio. We wanted to ask real quick because we haven't really had other people on the show who've had experience on the wind side as much.
Okay.
So if you're kind of what I might call an untraditional studio musician in the sense of most studios, you kind of think of they need guitar players, bass players, vocalists, etc. But if you're more on the wind side or some sort of more orchestral instrument perhaps, do you have any advice towards getting studio gigs and opportunities in the music business on that side?
By the way, I'm so glad you don't play harp. Because had a horrible experience with harp player.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, too bad.
So I'm very excited about clarinet.
Harp players and string players can be a little temperamental. We kind of. Yes. I'm so fortunate that in addition to my full-time job at Anderson University that I'm a first call studio musician in Indianapolis. And we actually get quite a bit of recording there, even some from Nashville.
Yeah.
Because all of Hal Leonard Publishing does all of their recording at Airborne Studio in Indianapolis.
Oh, awesome.
So, and then we do recordings for Lorenz and Shawnee Press and Alfred and several others. So I record mainly for publishers, although I've done some other special projects as well. Yeah. But my claim to fame as a recording artist is that there's this method book out called Essential Elements.
Okay.
And it's like I think it's the #1 selling band method.
Okay.
And there's a CD in the back. And then there's also, you can go online. In fact, I've got the app on my phone where you can do the app on your phone. And you play these little melodies, and then it's got all these different accompaniments. So you can play along and do a reggae accompaniment or rock accompaniment or classical accompaniment. It's just really fun.
Yeah.
So in the clarinet book, I recorded all the clarinet stuff for the books, all the clarinet, bass clarinet, and alto clarinet. Believe it or not, people still play alto clarinet.
I love it.
For that method book. And I was so proud because, I was born and raised in Texas, and I was just so proud that Texas just adopted that as their method book for all the band programs.
So you're living on in Texas.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and you'd be surprised how hard it is. I was there recording some of those easy lines with a trumpet teacher from Indiana University. And we're looking at the book going, well, this is pretty easy, So, it's harder to do than you think to play quarter notes exactly the same length, sure. And put your tongue exactly on the same place on the reed and try to, do that with a metronome. But anyway, if I had any advice for people wanting to be studio musicians, this would be my advice. The reason why I'm the first call is not because I'm the best clarinet player in the area. There are clarinet players who can blow me away. But my competitive advantage is that I can play all styles. And I can play, for example, I play in a Dixieland band right now. I play in a klezmer band. In fact, I got a gig next week.
I don't even know what
Bar
that is, but
mitzvah,
I'm way into it.
Jewish
Come on.
music.
I
Jewish
love
music. I play in orchestras. So I can play all styles of music. And I can play all styles because my parents were country western musicians. Like I grew up listening to that, and then I was trained classically. But I can, so you put me in the studio, I can, throw a Dixieland piece. I got this, throw. So that's a distinct advantage to be able to play many different styles because most classical musicians can't, and that's an advantage. The other thing is to don't say no. Because if you say no enough times, they stop asking you. So I try to be available when I can. So I kind of rearrange my schedule so that I know, for example, that a lot of the recordings are on Mondays because that's when the Indianapolis Symphony musicians are off and they're going to utilize them as well. So I know to kind of keep my Mondays free. And then the other thing, which is very, very important, is that be nice to people.
Yes.
Be a pleasant person because there are a lot of great players out there. And if you have to choose to sit by somebody in a recording session, you don't want to sit by somebody who's negative or, it's just not a nice person, So just being a nice person will get you the gig,
the personality.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Be friendly and nice and, if people like you, they're going to hire you. If they've got two great clarinet players and one is, not pleasant and the other is pleasant, who are they going to hire?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
the one that's
both
easier
of them
to work
can
with.
do the job.
Yeah.
So
why put yourself in a
important.
stressful situation if you don't have to do it?
Should we hammer into these full circle 5 real quick?
Yeah, let's jump in real quick. So I'm very anxious to hear your answer to this because you are an educator. So something we like to ask all our guests are, do you have a favorite book or record that you recommend to everybody?
A favorite book or record?
Or specifically to someone who's trying to make it in music.
That Donald Passman book, Everything You Want to Know About the Music Business But We're Afraid to Ask. I love that book.
Okay.
I can't really use that book to teach. It's got a little bit of bad language in it for, a Christian school. But so I don't, use it in the classroom.
Yeah.
But I definitely give it to them after they graduate.
That's awesome. And do you have any favorite records for?
A favorite record?
Like something that just someone trying to make it in music they should be aware of this music.
No, but if they're going to be a songwriter, that Bob Dylan book, I would recommend that book for sure. The songwriting book.
I love it. So something that we talk about a lot at our academy and then on the podcast as well is mentors and mistakes being two different ways of learning. And mistakes and failures can be a really powerful way of learning as long as it changes your outlook on things and kind of, helps push you forward and grow some. So do you have a favorite failure in life that's just kind of helped push you to where you are?
Favorite failure? Well... That's kind of an oxymoron.
Yeah.
Most meaningful failure.
You know what? Early on, when within the first 3 years that I started teaching, one of my students gave me a really bad review. Okay. And you know what? You think the students think you don't know who's doing it, but we know, And I knew who it was. And I was so wounded by that because I took pride in being the best teacher I could be. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I didn't understand, and I was so hurt and wounded. And it took me a while to get over that. Mm-hmm. But the poet Rumi says, a wound is a place that lets the light shine through. Yeah. And I love that. And it really drove me to really look at how I was teaching and to improve what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And interestingly enough, and the other thing it taught me is when that happens, don't take it so personally or seriously, because even though I used it for good in a positive way to improve my teaching techniques and the way that I approached teaching, but on the other hand, it was probably 10 years later, this student actually came back to me and apologized.
Oh, wow.
And said, I always wanted to tell you this, but I was going through some stuff in my life, and it really had nothing to do with you. And, I just kind of took it out on you. And it made, it was I felt like kind of vindicated at that point and relieved. But I'm not sorry for the experience, because it did, you have to constantly be humbly approach your craft, because once you start thinking you know it all, you're going down.
Yeah, it's the most dangerous time.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So with yourself as a music educator and as a musician, what would you say might have been the number one thing holding you back from accomplishing what you have accomplished?
The number one thing holding me back?
Like trying to get into all of this. And
Yeah.
Oh.
Is there something you had to overcome to kind of jump in?
Okay, I'm just going to say it.
Come on.
I'm just going to say it.
I'm ready to hear it.
Now, it's a different day today.
Hey.
But, I started getting into this business 20, 30 years ago, okay, right? Being a woman. And it's because it was so male-dominated.
Yeah.
And an example of this is that I was president of the Music and Entertainment Educators Association. Mm-hmm. And I remember being on the board, and I was the only female on the board. And I'm looking around, and there were so few female music business teachers. And I still don't see very many female producers. And I'm going for it. It's like every time I see one of my students, female students with potential, I'm saying, would you like to be a producer? Because we need more female producers in the industry, because it's just so male dominated.
Yeah.
So I think that would be it. I feel like I had to fight that wall.
Yeah. That's a very real struggle for you.
It's gotten better to this day, but still, they even say at radio, it's still very challenging, for a lot of women. So it's good to see it's coming up some. But I'd love to see more women producers and engineers out there.
I'm the same way. Anytime I see any female come by with specifically production potential, I'm like, chase that, because if you can be really good as a producer, that could be just a whole angle for you that
because I think
a lot of other people don't have.
Would make wonderful producers. They're intuitive and creative. I don't get it.
Yeah. No, the times are changing, so onwards and upwards. It's
for sure.
Our last production retreat, I think it was 50. It was only 6 students, and I think we were 50-50 male female.
Good.
Yeah, so
Good.
you never know. Things are looking good. So you want to round us out here?
Yeah. What is something specific, like in your life right now, like a strategy or a tactic or something you're implementing in your career that's just working well right now? You told us a few things that are working well for Orangehaus. Like, is there anything for you personally that you're doing that's just working well?
Okay. Like as a lifestyle or whatever?
Or something that's kind of just contributing to success with what you're...
Something that's enabling you.
Yeah. You know what? I've learned to not... I've learned to relax a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, totally.
And I've kind of adopted that philosophy from the movie Frozen, Let It Go.
Yeah.
I used to...
I love that.
I used to be so stressed about, and it's like, you know what? I just need to sit back, do what I know I need to do, because it's all in God's plan, and it's all going to work out the best, and I am not in control of everything. So I'm just going to do my best and sit back and plant those seeds and watch them grow, and not take things personally, and not try to be upset about things that I have no control over.
For sure.
So that's working for me.
Cool. If you were tomorrow to find yourself in a situation where everything in your music world was gone, you didn't have a career at Anderson, you weren't getting any calls for studio gigs, anything like that, what would you do to basically start a music career fresh? Like, what would be your first step towards pursuing a music career if you had to start from scratch?
Well, you know what? Whenever my students are always coming to me whining about, I'm not getting any gigs, nobody's hiring me, blah, blah, blah. You know what? You create your own gig.
Yeah.
Stop waiting for the phone to ring and create your own gig. I would just start creating my own gig. Yeah. Like right now, I always say this, and I hope this never happens, but if I didn't have my job at Anderson University, I'd have more time you know, to do other things. I mean,
Yeah.
I wish there were 12 of me because there's so many things I want to do and I just don't have the time. But if I didn't have my job, there's so many things I would still like to do. In fact, right now, talk about another income stream. I'm working with a job source
Okay.
in Anderson to develop, and they got a huge grant to develop through community service grant to develop an after-school program for underprivileged children to take private lessons. So I could do that full time if I wanted to. You know, I'm the director of that program. I found the teachers, helped develop the curriculum, got the schedule, got the place, and all this stuff. So all these kids that they're busing in who would have no chance of ever learning the violin, we provide the best teachers and the instruments.
That's awesome.
And they come 4 days a week and do private lessons. And here's another case where job source is now the music business.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's everywhere.
So there's just a lot of opportunities. So I would just create another gig, you know, create my own gig. I wouldn't wait for the phone to ring.
That's the entrepreneurial spirit right there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a huge part of music now. That's awesome. Well, Becky, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so
been a
honored
lot
to
of
be
fun.
here.
I know, we've had a blast.
And I'm so proud of Logan being here
thanks.
working with you. And I knew he would be successful. He was always one of my shining stars in the program.
Well, we're glad to have him.
Yeah.
For Logan and myself, this has been the Made It in Music podcast.